Hi, and welcome to the final session of the day, sans our DJ set, if we get everything together. We're having a slight technical difficulty right now, and so hopefully we'll be able to bring in CT shortly. But we're going to get things started with our session. This is our Spartan breakthrough session. So we're going to have conversations about how we're breaking through difficult things that happen, and we're stronger, better. All of that comes with it. So Aaron Hinde, am I saying that right? Aaron Hinde is with us. And great. And Laura is they're both going to have right now it's going to be a one-on-one conversation. So like a fireside chat to give us all the deets on Aaron and what he's been building lately. So I'm going to step out and we're going to try to find CT and get him into the session. So enjoy. And of course, I'll be back right on the hour of this session, that is, and we'll close you guys out and let you know what you have to do to join in for tomorrow. Enjoy the session.
Well, I'm hopeful we get CT in here sooner than later. It's not every day you get to share the stage with a three-time world record holder.
It's pretty. He's pretty amazing. So we've got the team helping him, so I'm sure we'll get him on in a few moments. But in the meantime, hi Aaron. It's great to see you in person after chatting on the phone and over email. I think we had a great conversation about taking a stand and what you've done as a leader at this really crucial moment. In everyone's life. I think if you think about where we were on May 1st versus where we are now in early July 2020, it's drastically different on top of everything that's happened this year already. And so I think it would be great to sort of start back with introducing yourself and telling us a little bit about what you do and a little bit of your backstory.
Yeah, Aaron Hinde, president, co-founder here at Life Aid Beverage Company. We've been involved with the Spartan community for probably 6 years now, primarily with our very clean recovery drink, Fit Aid. We're based here in beautiful Santa Cruz, California.
Awesome. And what made you get into this side of the universe of the lifestyle drinks? I mean, there's so many. What made you decide to jump in and be a part of this brand?
Yeah, I mean, if you rewind back, when we first started almost a decade ago now, a lot of the beverages on the market were so good for you, let's say. The big beverage companies in this country have really gotten a free pass for almost 100 years, poisoning our children. We've got diabetes rates through the roof, major chronic diseases, inflammatory diseases at an all-time high. We're taking steps backward, not forward. And a lot of that is due to sugary beverages. And so it was really out of ignorance and passion to create cleaner, healthier products for our kids that we came up with Life Aid.
And then, so you were making Fit Aid, and then, you guys have been around for about 10 years. Things are kind of going along swimmingly. And then you end up partnering with our amazing sponsor here, Spartan. And as I was saying to you earlier, you all were a lifesaver to me during my very first Spartan race back in February, where I accidentally did a super. And for you all who are listening and wondering about these obstacle races that Spartan does, a super is basically 25 obstacles over 13 and a half kilometers. It's hell. And when you're done, because I was about almost 4 hours took to do this, the thing they hand you is a Fit Aid. And basically I housed it faster than I've ever drank anything in my entire life because I was that thirsty. It came in really handy as a recovery drink.
Let me guess, Joe had something to do with twisting your arm to do the race when you showed up.
A little.
Just a little? Yeah. It tends to happen that way. He's got to... Like, I'll just do the race. Come on.
What could happen? It was
no big deal.
And I was like, oh, okay. Not like I've trained for this. What? But it was one really incredible thing to experience, because it was all about community. Because I was by myself, and then I ended up making a really awesome set of friends along the way who helped me through the race. And I think that's really an impactful part about what Spartan is about, the community aspect of it, and working together with folks who may not look like you, come from different backgrounds, but you're all part of one shared community. And that's why we're really awesome. Happy to have them as our lead partner for Inkwell this week, but also to bring this conversation to the forefront. So talking about community and what it means, there's been something interesting that's happened in your business recently. And I'd love for you to tell that story.
Yeah. I assume you're referring to our recent departure from CrossFit, that had also been a longtime partner of ours for many, many, many years. And both organizations really about bringing people together, inclusion, amazing communities built around both. It was a circumstance where the previous founder and owner of CrossFit, Greg Glassman, had made some comments that were extremely insensitive around George Floyd and everything that was going on in the country at the time. And we came to the realization as an organization, as a company, and we're a very diverse organization from backgrounds from all over the world. The athletes that we sponsor, the team that we have, and we just we don't have tolerance for the perception of separating people. Again, we're about bringing people together, and we found that we were no longer in alignment with the leadership, and we spoke with our leadership team about it, and made a pretty quick decision. I mean, it was we felt it was the right thing to do. We've always been a very principled company, and so from that perspective, the decision was an easy decision. It was obviously challenging because there's a lot of financial impact with that decision, and some blowback from certain people in the community when we decided to walk away from that partnership. But we were able to help spark some change there. There's been a change of ownership just within the last couple of weeks, and we believe that the new owner is taking that organization in the right direction again. He's been already doing some great things on inclusion and bringing the community back together. So we're extremely glad that we could be a catalyst for that change and help bring people back together.
And that's really important, because I think, sometimes folks think, oh, well, we're going to take a leap out of here, but we hope it doesn't really rock the boat. But you guys were like, listen, we want to flip that entire boat over. And if they move and if they make changes, great, but we're going to take a stand as a company. And I'm sure that, for every one person who said, fantastic, Aaron, I'm sure there were a couple of folks who were not saying that. And for you, how did you sort of deal with and respond to folks saying, listen, like I do CrossFit all the time. I always drink a Fit Aid when I'm done after a workout. Now that you're not going to be part of CrossFit, I don't want to drink you anymore. What was that kind of response?
We did get that. Yeah, we did get that. I think it's Martin Luther King that said the time is always right to do what's right, right? And so when you're faced with a decision, it's like, okay, well, they can impact us negatively in these ways, but it's the right thing to do, then it's an easy decision. So when those people are emailing or calling or hammering media, first off, I would have our team or myself personally, like, reach out to them, and it's like, I'll get on the phone with them. Like, I want to know what your perspective and how you're thinking about this situation, because I don't have all the answers. I only have my experiences. I was on the phone for a week straight with people. Yeah, absolutely. 100%.
That's
and
incredible.
I think most people just want to be heard. Yeah, most people just wanted to be heard. They felt, frustrated with the current state of affairs and the tension, and from their perspective, they're like, I'm a gym owner, I've got people from all different diverse backgrounds working out here, we've got a great community, what's going on at this doesn't represent what's going on in our community, in our box, in our gym. when you walk away from that, you're walking away from us. That was their perspective. And that was a good perspective to hear. And I said, look, we're not walking away from you. I'm talking to you right now. I mean, we're here to support you, and we continue to support you. And here's the ways that we've always done that. But how are we going to affect change unless we take a stand? You know, if nobody said anything and there was no action taken, there would be no change that happened, right? I love Ryan Halliday's book, The Obstacle is the Way. And basically the premise is these obstacles are put in our path in order to be a catalyst for growth. Without an obstacle, we cannot grow. You know, when everything's status quo, we don't do anything differently. So these things were said. They were taken a certain way. We took a stand immediately against it. Then a lot of other companies got behind us and did the exact same thing, as did a lot of the athletes. Change happened. Now a lot of the conversations like, well, you should have just hung in there because change happened. It's like, well, change happened because we took a stand. You know, so you can't sit on the sidelines. Gotta act in alignment with your principles, and that's what we did.
Awesome. I can't. You're incredible for taking phone calls, because I think, but also it points to the fact that, like, what we've been talking about all day, over the last 2 days at Inkwell, that it's not just enough to make a statement. It's to take that meaningful action and then take the blowback, come what may, and then help people listen, learn, and then act. And you know, okay, so now you're a few weeks into this. You know, what's now been the response? Like, what are folks saying to you now? Like, when you call, what are folks saying?
Well, I'm a big believer that we're going to attract who we're going to attract, who we're going to repel. So if we need to have a serious open dialogue in this country. And that means that we need to be open to what you just said, listening first. You know, too many of the talking heads are talking over everybody and telling us what we need to think. And it's like, no. We can have an open dialogue and have differences of opinion in this country. And then I think come to agreement, because I believe most people are good people. Most people want what right. I mean, most people look at this country. We're all coming from such diverse backgrounds now. I just look at my kids, and you know, their grandfather on their mother's side served in the concentration camps in World War II. You know, was a Jewish survivor. You know, my mother was kicked out of pools in the South when she was a kid because she was too dark skinned. You know, it's like, this is like the history of this country. We're coming together, and now we're producing children that are better than us. They're more accepting, they're more loving. They don't see skin color, they don't see sexual orientation, they don't see these things that have weighed us down for a long time. So I believe that we are going in the right direction, and the only way to continue that is to have an open and honest dialogue, listen first. And that's what we're continuing to do. We're going to continue to listen and take a leadership position where we think, but most of the time we're listening. I mean, I'm 44 years old. CT Fletcher's got 20 years on me. He's been through more, you know, on the East Coast here, and going through like real prejudice, real oppression, you know, and like, I can't even comprehend what that's like. You know, he's the person that, you know, I'm listening to right now. People,
and
like
it's true, and it's so necessary. I think, well, you know, the listening part, I think it oftentimes gets overlooked at this particular juncture, because I think everyone's sort of rushing to go and make that. Well, look, I made this statement, or we made this donation. Oh, and I think we have CT. Hold on. See if we can bring him on in. But it's key for us to listen to each other. And when we make those sometimes tough choices, hey, CT. But it's key for us to listen to each other. And when we make those sometimes tough choices, hey, CT. But it's key for us to listen to each other. And when we make those sometimes tough choices,
CT, I might need to mute one of your. Mike.
3 or 4 people talking.
You might need to mute one of the.
I might need to mute one of your.
Okay, mute something. 3 or 4 people talking.
You might need to mute one of the.
Oh, I might need to.
Yeah, one of the.
My daughter-in-law, because I don't know how to do it. Allie. They said I need to mute one of my mics. That's my daughter-in-law, Allie. She's helping me out.
CT, if you can hear us, I called in from a couple different. Your computer mic may be on as well as your phone.
Yep, that sounds better. Just now, you turn it all the way down. We almost got it.
Well, let me just give the audience, if they're not familiar with this man, he's a world record holder, 3 times, I believe. He's a complete legend in the world of fitness. He's the best hype man I've ever seen. We've had him do a couple events with us, and I've never seen anybody get the crowd going like he does. He's an incredible speaker from the stage, and just an all-around, just humble, nice guy for everything he's accomplished. So really glad that he could join us.
Aaron, I think you give me way too much credit, but I am glad to be here. I'm glad she finally hooked it up for me because I was lost. I was totally lost.
Well, CT, it is an honor to have you here, and I would love for you to give a little bit of background about you and your history, because it's great to have you on for this conversation.
Thank you very much. I'm an old dude, been around for a long time, and on this subject, I guess, like I said, our family lived in Watts during the Watts riots. So we moved from Arkansas and supposedly upgrading or, making a better move for our family. So we moved to Watts, and shortly afterwards was the Watts riots. So I remember guys walking around with signs around their necks that read like this: "I am a man." And they were fighting back then just to be recognized as a human being or as a man and not less than. So I see all the way in 2020, we're trying to be recognized still as equal. As just Black Lives Matter. They were trying to say the same thing in 65 that they're saying now. They said it a different way back then, but it's the same message. So like I said, the difference between then and now is the crowd, the protesters. Back then was a whole lot of people who looked like me. And now when you look at the TV reports and news reports, there's a whole lot of people of a whole lot of different nationalities, different races, and I think that's exactly what we need to be heard. Because back then, if it was just, long as it was just us, it didn't matter.
And thank you for saying that, CT. I think that's the key here. I think now we have this moment where it's not just people who look like you and me who are marching in the streets, and that's getting people to pay attention, because it's not, you could sort of look at one side and be like, okay, well, it's just the Black folks talking about it. But now It's got everyone, and it's not just young people. It's all ages, it's all genders coming together and saying, listen, no matter where we are, we're going to stand with you all. And I think it's interesting because what's been kind of surprising is this sort of moment of diversity and inclusion in sports. So from Bubba Wallace with NASCAR of all things,
exactly.
The NFL finally acknowledging that Kaepernick was right.
And is right also.
But then also even little things like, I mean, one of the things that's been amazing to me is Premier League football. Every jersey on the back says Black Lives Matter. Why do you guys think that like sports amplifying diversity and inclusion at this moment is a really good thing?
Aaron?
I'd say there's no better example of diversity and inclusion than sports. I mean, where we're at today, you're based on no, sports don't see color, at least not in this country. It sees athletic ability, period. And you've got the ability, you're gonna make it. So it's a great stage to bring athletes from all over the globe together and compete together and compete against each other. So it's a great example of what we can move and what we can be like as a
I
society.
agree. It's a hell of a platform, and with you saying that sports is very diversified. It was not always like that. It was. I remember when they had Negro leagues, so it wasn't always the case. So we have made some progress, but we need to make more, and that's what people are out there protesting about.
And do you think it's one of those things where the companies are now seeing that it's affecting their dollars, and that's why because I think folks were like, it's interesting, like NASCAR is seeing ratings go up, and you're like, wait a minute, how of all the brands in the world, NASCAR, the NHL did a really amazing Juneteenth post about how the very first sort of modern hockey tournament was done by the Black NHL. What? It seems as if it's because sports teams and sports organizations are now seeing that there's actually money and actually standing up for their Black athletes for real, as opposed to sort of a tacit like, okay, we'll let you protest.
It's incredible. It is absolutely. NASCAR would have been the last sport that I ever expected to see any change. I mean, they are the Confederate flag bearing capital of the USA for sure, Jack. I mean, that is where you will find the most Confederate flag wearing and south, down south, good old boys that you will ever see. And for Bubba first to stand up and take the stand that he took, and then for NASCAR to back him up on that stand is just simply amazing, and something that I frankly never thought I'd see in my lifetime. And I'm glad to see it.
Yeah, and so now that we're at this moment, where do you all think we're going to go from here? Because it looks like sports is sort of leading the way, because not only are they taking a stand, not only are they backing their players, but they're actually now putting their money where their mouth is by making smarter donations. Like, where do you see, what's the future of this? Like, is this going to be this sort of idea of how brands and influencers can work together in a really impactful way going forward?
Yeah.
I think so. I mean, I think you made a good point that the economics, do drive policy changes. So you've got that going on, and that's going to continue to swing in the right direction. And then, as sports wasn't always this way, I've only known it this way. My kids will only know it this way to even a greater degree. So as the generations start to move on, our reality, our experience is like, what do you mean that was segregated? That doesn't even make sense. Like, kids couldn't even contemplate not watching Steph Curry play on our team and be playing in a separate league, right? It wouldn't even cross their mind. So, as kind of the old guard and the old way of doing things starts to die out a little bit, I'm extremely optimistic with the way that the younger generation sees things.
I'm optimistic also, but the reason the people out in the streets protesting because we still have in this society people that say, get that bitch off the field and throw. So that's why the people are out in the streets now, because everybody is not convinced, but there is a big change. And, one thing I really recognize is a super big change is the fact that it's worldwide. I see people protesting in England, Australia, New Zealand, even Korea for George Floyd. And I never thought that I would ever live to see the day that anybody, I mean, not everybody, just everybody in this country, let alone other countries, protesting for the same cause. It's just, it's a miracle, a modern day miracle.
And it's
how much longer do you think we have to go, CT? Like, do you think we're 10 years away, 20 years, 50 years? Like, how much, when do we reach a point? I mean, I live this is in Northern California, it's kind of a melting pot. Like, a lot of us are some shade of brown, right? So we've got mixed backgrounds, and you go to one grandparent's house, it's a full experience compared to another grandparent's house. Like, are we a generation away, or still 50 years to go, or was this like 10 years and we'll be closer to where we need to be?
Is that a question for Laura or for me?
That's it. I think it's for you, CT.
Either one of you. I'm curious. I'm like,
well, I have lived, and I'm going to tell you, I've seen, like I said, I've seen more than I ever thought I would live to see. But obviously, there's still a lot of work to be done, because there's still a lot of people. And if you just look at the news, I don't care what station, you're going to still see a lot of people that are offended and downright pissed off by a person wanting to be equal. Equal, just the word. I'm not asking to be more than or better than. I just want to be the same as, on the same plane, level with you, equal with you, no better than you, not one bit better than you, but I want you to know that I'm equal with you, no less than you. And that pisses people off. And if that, as long as that attitude still exists, then we have a ways to go. But my children, we have come a long, long ways. When my mom and my older brother, we first came out here, we came to California in the back of the bus, in the colored section. And that's during my lifetime. And I'm not that old. I'm old, but I ain't that old. And, so I've seen a lot of things when we travel, when we go back down south to Arkansas. I was born in Little Rock, Arkansas. And I have seen colored only water fountains and colored entrances. And I had my cousin, when we go visit on vacation, boy, they would tell you in a hurry, don't step on Mr. Gilmore's grass, because Mr. Gilmore will put a hole in your ass. So that's, back then. And then the older people back then would talk about 1921 and the Black Wall Street massacre. They would tell us stories about that. And they think that rioting and looting started with people of my color, or that look like me. We had a perfect example to follow when it came to rioting and looting by the 1921 Black Wall Street massacre. So we had the example set for us by them. The rioting and looting started with them. So I get kind of heated on the collar when I hear about all the stuff that we doing. Yes, but it's something, like I said, I still have a whole lot of hope. And I got that from my mom. I got that from my mom. My mom's told me as a little kid, she brought me and said, love everybody. And I'm like, Mama, but what if they don't love me? What if they hate me? Because I see these folks calling me the N-word, that they ain't never met me before, and they hate me instantly just because the color of my skin. I gotta love them too, Mama. And she looked at me and she put my face in her hands. And she said, especially them. Especially them. I said, dang, Mama, I don't know if I can do this. It's easy for me to love somebody who loved me back. Aaron loved me, I love Aaron. Laura loved me, I love Laura. But it's what is really difficult, and this is where that being like Christ or Christ-like thing come in, to love somebody that hates you for no other reason than the color of your skin. That takes something right there. that takes something. Now, it's easy. It's like I said, it's easy to love people who love you back. But when you can love somebody that hates you, then you talking about being Christ-like. There's a whole lot of people that's in church every Sunday that ain't as Christ-like as they claim to be, Laura.
No, they're not. And it's true, and I think that's the thing. I think we're at this sort of weird intersection now, where, because I think you see it now. Like there is no more hiding of this, and I think that's the biggest difference right now. Like, if there were players who felt and wanted to say Black Lives Matter, they were afraid because they didn't want to lose their endorsement, or if there was a company that was doing something horrific and you were one of the brands that worked with them, you were afraid because you didn't want to lose that money. And I think because of the fact that we're at this moment where we had a pandemic, we have, economic collapse, and then we have 4 straight videos of Black people being murdered by white people, unarmed, and cops being called on unarmed Black men. That because this revolution is being televised, that seems to be the catalyst for why folks are paying attention.
They like, well, I can't believe it. Black folks are like, we knew it all the time.
Like, yeah, I think
not surprised at all.
Yeah, we've been saying this the whole time. What are you talking? You can't believe it,
And I think but I also think it's the honest. I think this moment now.
I remember a quick. Quick story. I when I was a teenager, I got a good job and I bought this red shiny Camaro. It was red with 2 black on it, and I'm driving along, going the speed limit on my way to work, and I get pulled over by 2 sheriff cars. And sheriffs typically don't pull you over. That's more like highway patrol and that type of thing. If you pull over by a sheriff, come up. Is this your car? Yeah, it's my car, officer. Blah, blah, blah. I call my dad. I'm like, hey, I got pulled over in 2 sheriff cars. He comes down the hill and he chews these guys out. He's like, you pulled my son over because he's brown. You thought he stole this car? And he starts yelling at these sheriffs. They're like, oh, sorry, sir. Gave me back my stuff real quick. But I was like, that's interesting. Like to that experience. Again, my experience is nothing compared to CT, nothing. But the few little experiences that I've had living on the East Coast and here and there, it does just it rubs you the wrong way. You're like, is this really still going on? Like this kind of it's bizarre. So we still have some ground to make up here. And I think you're right, Laura. Everything's on video now. Like I get pulled over in that same situation, I could start hitting record, and you can't. Those injustices now are all over the internet, and they're in people's face. And for the first time, people are having to be confronted with that on Facebook and YouTube and on Instagram in ways that they've never had before. I
can't tell you how many times I've been pulled over for fitting the description.
At least 100, CT?
Yeah.
At least, right? And that's the scary part. I think for Black people, it's just a thing where you just sort of know that this is a constant fear that you could have. I mean, I've got 2 older brothers who are rather tall, and like I have short hair now. If I put it back from behind and I wear a hoodie, you might think I'm a guy and stop me. So it's all these different things that, from your own lived experience, gives you a lens into what's happening now, but also to kind of openly share those things with our white friends and colleagues and allies, because I think for a lot of folks, we've just sort of internalized that and said that's just the way. I'm going to get pulled over. Okay.
Yeah.
And I think there's been
that's been something I've told all my white friends is like when you get pulled over and you're Caucasian, not once does it cross your head, I could end up dead because I'm being pulled over right now. That's a reality for Black people. That's a reality. Like, that crosses your head. That never crosses your mind. Caucasian person. I'm getting pulled over for the speeding ticket. This could be it. Like, that's a whole different paradigm that you're having to work within, and that what that does to your psychology. And, you know, it's just not right.
Big time.
And we're hopeful that, like, now, as you know, we're at this moment, you know, everything is being shown on video, that folks can no longer say that, like, well, oh, but did you really mean that? And so it's kind of like when I was saying to you earlier, Aaron, about like when you sort of confront your white friends and say, like, you know, that stuff that you said was not so cool. And in a new way, because we're at this juncture where we have to come get our girls and come get our guys and be like, listen, like, that uncool, and be willing to take the blowback from that as well, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. And like CT said when he first got on, you know, I mean, you look at the protests now, and we've got multiple generations. We've got people of all different ethnicities and backgrounds and colors, and so it does give us, you know, hope that this is a time where very rational, loving people are all waking up saying, wow, this is a bigger issue than we may have thought it was, and let's come together as a community and not have any tolerance for this hatred. You know, this has got to stop. It's it's got to stop. It's time to move forward. I mean, people should be judged on their actions, not on anything else. You know, all I have in my life is my reputation. You know, I have my word and my reputation. That's what I want to be judged on. I don't want to be judged because I'm white, brown, yellow, any
word.
other.
I like that. People don't care nothing about their word no more, Lord. It don't make them know that. If I was raised, my dad, he said it a different way because he was a preacher and he didn't cuss too often. But what he said was, if your word ain't shit, then you ain't shit. It's just that simple. And only he phrased it a little different. I put a little CT Fletcher in there, but if your word ain't nothing, then you ain't nothing. That's how he would phrase it.
I prefer yours, CT. I prefer yours.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think we're at this point where we want. Look, it's not, again, we're not fighting because we want to be better than. It's just a matter of being equal, and I think even for that, because we're seeing some degree of blowback. I mean, we're about a month into this now, where there's been sustained protests, and there has been some change. There have been people who've been called out, and you're already starting to see some folks saying, is this over now? Can I just go back to this? And I think we're like, how do we keep the momentum going so that we don't see this sort of people reverting back to, like, well, we're all hyped up for a month. I wanted to go protest and do all this stuff. And now, okay, well, what's the next thing I should be paying attention to?
Well, there's obviously some people that are in very high places that are keeping it going. They are, pouring gasoline on the fire almost every day. And I'm not going to even say who it is, but I think everybody knows who it is from very high places. They're just pouring gasoline on it every day. Let's get these Confederate flags back, and let's put these people in their place, and let's call out, fucking law and order like a Law and Order big time, man. This is ridiculous. Didn't we give them enough? We made them free, for God's sakes. We gave them freedom, and and what else do they want? This is ridiculous. But when you can watch, I tell my friends, and I have friends of every nation, every race, in my own family, and I have friends also. But when you watch a man have his life taken, on a live video feed, and the total disregard for this man as a human being, as a life, you see him dying right in front. And I'm gonna tell you something, Laura and Aaron, when he called for his mama, Because I'm telling you, I don't know if you noticed, Laura, but I have flatlined or passed away 5 times in my life. And during one of those times, I seen my mom, Laura. I was so close, I was flatlined for just a couple minutes, but it seemed like it was for hours because the sleep and the rest was like none other I've ever had. But I seen my mom. So when George Floyd called for his mama, I know how he felt. He seen her and I'm getting ready. He knew he was getting ready to meet her. So he called his mom, and when he did that right in front of us, in front of the world, and this guy knew this man was dying, the total worthlessness that he felt for a human being is stirred in everybody of good conscience. It didn't make a difference what race you are. It didn't even make a difference what country you were in. The people of good conscience, good people, and I believe, Laura and Aaron, that the good people outnumber the bad. And that's how we're going to make change. When the good people stand up and don't put their head in the sand and pretend like they don't see it, then we can make change. We get enough good people to stand up and do something like Aaron did when he took a stand with his company possibly losing revenue. A good man said, I don't care. I don't want nothing to do with you. If this is what you represent, then I'm done. Damn the cost. Now that's a good man right there. I'm sorry, I'm a preacher's son. I tend to preach.
Thank you.
You can keep on preaching. I also expected this, CT.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, not.
You bring up a good point, C. People are standing up and standing up. The other part of this, and I've got relationships, as I'm sure you do, with many good-hearted, great cops that that do good work every single day. I think the challenge here is, in some cases, we're not putting the education and the emotional intelligence into the training. I mean, the typical police academy is about 6 months long or something like that. Some of these kids, 21 years old. I mean, you remember what it was like to be 21, CT? I do too. You got a lot of testosterone. Your head's not necessarily has the most clarity at 21, 22, 23 as it does a little later in life. Like, I think we need to look at the whole system and program, just like teachers, and say, okay, let's start paying police more. Let's have a much longer education program. Let's run them through, situational intelligence, emotional intelligence, like really be rigorous on who we're allowing to have that type of ultimate authority. Because you could be out there in the crowd saying, hey, this isn't right. Take your, stop this. But the person with the gun's telling you, shut the heck up. Like, it's difficult to take much further action than
that's the conversation that we're having right now around defund police and what that actually means. Because is it about, instead of just having less police, but better trained police? Because and also what can be done to de-escalate? Because same with what you were saying, if someone's young, amped up, full of testosterone, got a gun, this moment, that's different than someone who's coming in as, say, a counselor to deal with someone who's emotionally disturbed. So and is trained to deal with people who have mental issues, who may have emotional distress, and so they'll take a much more diplomatic route versus, well, I think you might kill me, so I'm going to kill you first. And that seems to have been the issue where we've sort of landed, where this
right.
and shoot first, ask questions later, and actually don't ask any questions. I'm a cop, so I've got qualified immunity, so I can shoot you and never have to worry about it. Like, and when rules like that go into place, because why did it take those sorts of, who thought it was a good idea to create something like qualified immunity? Yes, to protect police, but inherently you're making a program that makes it saying, okay, you can go ahead and smack somebody around because, yeah, all right, whatever. There's no button to be like, oh,
there's no accountability.
We shouldn't do this. Let's not just make this a free-for-all, but let's actually make this a community effort, which is like more community-led policing. There's like, one, cops are in the neighborhoods. 2, they live in the neighborhoods. 3, there are other people that you can call versus just calling the police. And having those sort of buffers in place leads you to a much better place than, unfortunately, where we are right now, where it's just like, shoot and strangle, knee on the neck, and then people die unnecessarily. I mean, thousands of people are dying unnecessarily.
Yeah. Well, like I said early on, when we have major obstacles in our own lives or as a society, and we work through those, we will be in a better place, because now it's part of the discussion. We're talking about it. There's policy that's being enacted to take care of some of these issues, and it may be slow. It may be like a very slow rock moving, much all of us would like to see, but these forces now are in motion. And a lot of it has to do with, like we said earlier, the availability.
My computer shut down. Can you guys hear me?
Yep, we can hear.
Oh, okay, yeah, my computer just.
We saw that you moved. We're just glad to have you, CT. So what we were saying is that what happens now from a policing standpoint, and how to sort of make the community actually lift everybody up versus the only solution being the police, is going to be a way to actually hopefully enact meaningful and lasting change for everyone involved. Because if it starts at the top, where like you can understand, okay, here's where the money's going to actually put this to make the world, the community safer, we're all going to be better off.
I agree, and I want to. I didn't hear the beginning of the conversation, but I want to say that I almost was a police officer myself. The post office and the police academy called at the same time, and I chose the post office because people wasn't shooting at me. So I did that for 28 years, and so I don't. I personally.
Is that how you got those biceps, CT, from carrying those nail guys doing curls the whole way, huh?
all through weightlifting career, I was throwing sacks. So, I personally don't want to see the police departments abolished or done away with completely. Reform, definitely yes, but abolished, no. They told me, one of the questions they asked me, and I almost threw, I was at the point of police department or post office, to take your choice. And they asked me, one of the questions at the police department was, would I be afraid to work in a high crime area such as Compton or Watts? And my answer was, of course not, because that's where I grew up at. That's my neighborhood. And I mean, I had to, I lived there my whole life. So if you're used to it, then why be afraid of it? I mean, that's just what you do. And they told me that was a bad answer, because you should be afraid. They told me that I should be afraid. And I said, well, I don't understand being afraid of, my own environment. Why if I'd be scared to go outside if I was afraid of my own environment. So I think if they had more people that are from that environment, or others that have lived in that environment and understand it better, then we might have better relationships between the police department and the community. But I want to ask you, Laura and Aaron, what percentage of the police department do you think is actually racist?
Well, I live in New York, CT. I mean, I don't know. I mean, honestly, I don't know. I would hope it's less than 10%, but I think that it's a different framing. It's not so much racist as it's implicit, where there's X number of people who probably are racist, but there are a lot more people who are bystanders, like those other cops who watched George Floyd get killed and just stand there. And I think it's because of that kind of culture around, like, you're a cop. It's like, it's all about Blue Lives Matter. And at that point, you don't see color, because you've seen obviously Black cops and Hispanic cops who've been a part of those shootings, or unarmed Black people being arrested. And so I think, it breeds this culture that's about it only bleeds blue, and that ends up causing massive problems.
What do you think, Aaron?
I think Laura nailed it. I mean, I would pray that it's way less than 10%. I mean, I think I would hope that the screening processes and everything in place is yielding the vast majority of good people. I believe that most people are good. So maybe I'm living in a fantasy land here, but I believe that most people are good, whether they're cops, postal men, construction workers, working in a corporate office, doesn't matter. But I live in Northern California, where it's a different way of looking at things here. When I moved to Western Pennsylvania, that was a shock for me, and it was a much different cultural situation. Now, people, in certain parts of the country may appear to be more prejudice in how they approach things, but it's very much in situ, because after they got to know me, or it was like, oh well, we're not prejudiced against you, right? And it's like, well, wait a second, you say you're a certain way, but then so in situ, so we still got a ways to go. But do people have hatred in their heart? I hope not. I hope that doesn't exist to the systemic level that we may be looking at right now. I hope it's a very, very small percent. Well, I'm going to say less than 2%.
Yeah, well, I totally disagree.
What do you think, CT? What's your number? I should ask you first.
I think it's I do think that Laura was hitting on a good point about the ones who would just stand by and watch, which in my opinion makes them just as guilty as the perpetrator. So my percentage is going to raise for those who would just stand by and watch and not say anything because they don't want to break the blue shield or the code of silence amongst the officers. My percentage would definitely raise, but it's also based on what, like everybody was saying, systemic racism. It's built into the system. I mean, years ago, they were taught that we don't feel pain like everybody else. That, it's, Black, that they just don't feel, they're different. They don't feel the same pain like we feel pain. They're just inhuman or less than human, and it's built into that system. So it takes a while to erase that or get past that. And believe it or not, there's some people who still feel that way to this day. And I guarantee you that the guy who had his knee on George Floyd's neck felt like that. What the hell? It's not bothering him. No, when his buddy said he think we should get off, it's not bothering him like would a normal person or like an actual human being. So it's okay. We can stay on his neck. So it's built in, and I would say the percentage is probably more like 25. And I mean, if you look at, you would think that in this day and age, some of the things we hear from the very top would have no way of having as much support as they do. But if you look at who's at the very top of this country and who's running this country, then obviously there must be a lot of support out there for that person's way of thinking, or else he would never be in the office. It's plain as day. If there's not a whole lot of people thinking like the leader is thinking, then there's no way that he could be in office. I know he may have lost the popular vote, but he got enough votes to get into office. So there's a whole lot more, people with that same frame of mind to this day. And that's why protests must continue. Good people must still stand up for what's right. Even when, I don't care if you see something that's wrong, have the testicular fortitude to stand up and say, that's wrong. Okay, I'm preaching again. I'm sorry.
So that's how you end it. Thank you, CT.
I was about to say amen goes right there. Amen.
I'm sorry, Adrian.
It is such a pleasure to see and meet you both. I was just really enjoying the conversation between you and Aaron CT. So thank you so much for joining us and closing us out with such a powerful last session on our Tech Tuesday, because we got into the technical situations of how we handle ourselves accordingly with the testicular fortitude. I love it.
I'm sorry.
So
that's the old man talk.
I know that's saying very well. I love it. But I want to say thank you guys so much for joining our session. When we're back in Cannes in the south of France next year, we hope you guys will join us again there. It's a totally different feeling. We can join each other, drink rosé, all of that. It'll be great. But I think the larger community would love to hear this conversation. And we're also going to share it again so people will have a chance to see it, because I think it's definitely worth hearing. So again, thank you. We're encouraging everyone to join us on tomorrow for Women Crush Wednesday, or WCW. We have some exciting conversations starting at 8:30 a.m. with our first session called Amy, Becky, and Karen, Get Your Girl. I like that face. Woo. Yes, followed by our diversity and inclusion leaders from 3 of our holding companies, IPG, Omnicom, and WPP, will start us off in the morning at 8:30, then followed at 10 a.m. So please join us. There is a different link. So check all of the social media channels that we have so you can get the correct link. We'll also be sending out emails to people that have registered, so you'll have that link with us as well. So thank you again, guys, for joining us. We look forward to having a continued conversation in some form or fashion with you all, and we hope you guys will join us again.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you, guys. Bye-bye, everyone.
Thank you.